You must sit down, because then I'll have to stand, and then we'll do this whole thing of like...
We'll do that along the way,
all right,
hopefully.
Right. We'll get up in a little bit.
So, you know, the theme of the conference is education and skills, celebrating teachers. How do we prepare ourselves for the future? And 2030 is the date on the calendar. And as you know, it's not just skills and training, it's also attitude, resilience, empathy, cross-cultural sensitivity, all of those things for which you are a role model, not just for girls, but boys, men, women, everybody. So let's start from the start, if I may, to the beginning of your professional career. Where did it start and how did it start?
Well, I was supposed to be an engineer. I come from a very academic background. Both my parents are doctors, and because they're both doctors, I knew I didn't want to be one. Because, you know, when you're a doctor's child, you're like literally raised in a hospital yourself. You like go with your parents, you're at night duty with them, the nurses are your best friend, formaldehyde is the only thing you know how to smell. It's a disaster. So I was like, I'm never gonna be a doctor, and I decided, I was very academically inclined. I loved physics and math. I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. I wanted to build planes. And when I came back from America, I went to high school in America, and I came back at the age of 16. And my mom thought, like most moms do, that my daughter is the prettiest girl in the room. And I was getting photographs taken in, you know, a small photo shop in Bareilly, just for a scholarship program for Australia where I wanted to apply. And the photographer was like, oh, you know, you're really pretty. Can I take some more pictures? And for a 16-year-old girl, you know, your vanity is peaked at that point. I was like, sure, of course. I will allow it. Soft focus pictures with my hand on my chin like that, like disaster. Anyway, those pictures were sent in by my mother to Miss India. For some reason, they picked me. I won that pageant, then I won Miss World. I was still just 18. Movie offers from Indian movies started coming my way. I didn't know what to do, but my dad and I had a chat, and my father told me that, you know, I never want you to have a what if in your life. You're 18 years old, give it a shot for a year and a half. If you're terrible, you can always go back to college. You'll know you can't act.
Right.
And if you're not, then you'll know that you found your calling.
So would you say that the first launch pad into this world was almost accidental? It's
oh, for sure, it was a fluke.
It's not something you wanted to do all your life.
No.
Do you believe in happy accidents or fate or act of God that sort of guides us into it?
I believe in destiny.
Indeed.
I do believe that destiny and hard work go hand in hand. Destiny will make you find opportunities. It is up to you and your aptitude to recognize them. I was not born with a silver spoon. I think none of us are. And you can't replace hard work, hustle. You cannot replace, you know, wanting something bad enough and actually going after it.
But is the move from being beauty queen to an actor automatic? Does that sort of happen to everybody?
No, it doesn't. We've seen, as the Indian media loves to point out sometimes, models can't act, how many models have been actors, and beauty queens, how many beauty queens have been actors. We get thrown that all the time. But to me, I think it's a very organic process, and it's very individual. The first opportunity for your first or second film, or maybe even a third one, will come to you because you're a famous beauty queen, or you're the son and daughter of someone, or you're recommended by someone. But the audience is too intelligent today. They always have been. They know who they want to watch, and it's called that's why it's called an X Factor.
Yes.
You don't have to be the prettiest girl in the room. You don't have to be the most talented. People just want to watch people sometimes, and that's what happened to me.
And we can see that, you know, not everyone who perhaps made that move sustained over time. I have a question that I want to get out of the way. You've said once that you're a proud feminist.
Yes.
Is that compatible with beauty pageants?
So, what does feminism mean to you as a man?
Me?
No, I'll answer the question that way, because I really do want to. I just want to get a perspective.
I take my cue from Justin Trudeau.
Okay, that's a good person to take a cue from.
It's equality. It's coming at equality from the angle of perhaps the side that may not have had equality.
So basically, it's giving women the ability to make their own choices without being judged.
Yes.
So who decides if a beauty pageant is feminist or not? That's my decision as someone being a part of a beauty pageant. And for me, it was amazing. It gave me wings. It gave me the ability to stand on my own feet and find a career. So as a feminist, an extremely proud feminist, I'm really glad that that was a stepping stone in my own decision. So when people always have this argument about beauty pageants versus, oh my God, that has nothing to do with feminism, that's exactly what feminism stands for. Let a woman do what she wants without judging her. Stop telling her what to do. Stop telling her how to be.
Ooh.
Let her be. Thank you.
Right. But do you get that? Is there prejudice around?
I get it all the time.
You know, I get it all the time too.
Yeah, I know.
Say,
You must have been, we have our beauty pageant past and everything.
Just say you're just a pretty face and no one takes you seriously. No, but prejudice, I guess, while we're on the topic, hashtag time's up. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? How would you describe what's going on, that movement? And what does it mean in particular for girls and boys growing up right now?
I think it's such an interesting time for our generation right now, with the vices and virtues of social media, like we keep discussing. I think that it has given, yes, there are good and bad, there's good and bad to everything, but what I think is amazing about social media is the empowerment that you get. So when somebody comes together and says hashtag time's up, or when you talk about the Me Too movement, and you see how it sort of brought the globe together, and it brought young people all over the world, different races, different colors, different religions, together on social media talking about, basically time's up to me is, we're not going to stay silent anymore. Whatever it is, whichever country it is, whatever the problem is, you're not going to be able to tell someone to, to not speak up against something that's happening to them. Whether that's not the lack of education or not having the rights to be able to live life the way you want, whether it's being violated sexually, emotionally, physically, however, time's up. You're not going to be able to silence our voices anymore because we stand by each other. And that is such a powerful thing to have happened. And that's happened with this generation, which is wonderful.
So kids shouldn't feel despondent about it when they read the gender pay gap has been there, it's here to stay. Should they feel despondent, or should they feel
I mean, if you want to
empowered
feel despondent, then we should have felt despondent for the last thousands of years.
Right.
Because that was our normal. Yeah. Now at least we've come to a point where we're saying that's not going to be normal. We are not okay with it being normal. We're going to stand up for our rights. And you actually have brothers in arms who stand next to you and say, yes, we stand up for this girl, or we stand up for this guy, and what they're saying is right. And that never happened before. It's such a powerful time.
Absolutely. You know, you described it as a global movement.
Yeah.
I've also heard you talk about the need for more global citizens.
Yes.
Which I love to hear personally, because I'm a poster child of a global citizen. But isn't that the problem? Doesn't it mean that if you're a citizen of the globe, you're a citizen of nowhere?
I don't think so. I think your roots define who you are. You can never, I mean, you can if you decide to, but you can never erase where you came from or where you were born. I'm proudly Indian. Wherever I go, I am as desi as it can get. But that doesn't necessarily, thank you. Especially because my achar travels with me, wherever in the world I go. But I'm as desi as it gets, but that doesn't mean I'm not concerned or aware about what's happening in the world. That doesn't mean that if I'm living in India or if I'm living in America, I won't be concerned about what's happening in Europe or what's happening in Sierra Leone or what's happening in Jordan. You know, I am a global citizen because the world matters to me. And when I talk about everyone becoming a global citizen, the privileged lot of us sitting in this room, educators, influencers, people who have the ability to have a roof on their heads, make decisions for ourselves. Everybody in the world today is trying to work really hard to make sure that their kids have a great future, that they can do the best that they can for their families. And I think a global citizen is someone who's aware of their privilege and understands that no matter where in the world I go, there will be someone who will be lesser off than you. So it makes it your responsibility.
Wonderful. So it doesn't take things away.
Not at all. It adds to you.
It adds
Yeah,
to
it
adds to
absolutely
that.
adds to you.
So you don't think people question authenticity if you're more than one? You say, I belong to more than one place. I get called a coconut, for example, like brown from the outside, white from the inside. Have you heard that?
Now I have.
But don't laugh. See, they're laughing.
No, I think that's terrible. That's a terrible
Terrible, isn't it?
stereotype. What's
Yeah.
wrong with people?
That's right.
I mean, we have South Asians who've lived in America and the UK for eons.
Yes.
Yeah, we were brought there in ships, but
Well,
we stayed and we did a
I
lot.
love your positive definition. You know, you are. I've seen you be very multicultural, at least bicultural.
Yes.
I've watched clips of you you're on the Set Mayor show, Stephen Colbert show,
Yeah.
quite a few others, and now of course you're on the Lutfi Siddiqui show.
I'm on the
which
Lufa
is
Siddiqui show. I am.
But I noticed that there you walk on stage, and they either get a hug or a peck on the cheek, and I got neither of the two.
Because you were standing so far away. Come on, we have to do this.
Yeah.
Hi. Oh, so good to see you. That's amazing.
I wasn't fishing for
हमने
that
तो
at all.
ईद मना ली. We
The
did
other-
Eid Mubarak a little earlier than we should have.
The other thing is, I know you are sensitive to the word Bollywood. And-
Yes. No, continue.
And
Your
it's,
question.
I have American friends who are also sensitive to the word Mumbai or Hombe. I think you should use that. You keep, like in Bollywood, you keep the rest of Hollywood, but you see add a B to the start of it.
It wasn't us.
No?
It wasn't like Bollywood suddenly said, how are we going to be a Me Too of Hollywood? No, we didn't. It was, I think, a name, I haven't gone back to how it originated, but it was a name that was given to us because it was Bombay, it was a film industry,
Right.
so it somehow became Bollywood. I did not have a problem with the word until I started working in America and until I started working internationally. The more I worked abroad, the more I realized that the word Bollywood has been reduced to a stereotype of everyone I meet, by the way, I don't think you should say the light bulb made up for saying.
Pick that up.
Thing people should not do that. Stereotype like there's to a flavor. I just took a Zumba class, so that's the movies in all the different languages, and my show Quantico. I'm an FBI agent who breaks down doors. I mean, my ethnicity has nothing to do with my character.
You mentioned yesterday that you're on a work visa in the US.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to get a visa? You have to prove that they couldn't find somebody local who could have done that job. Isn't that right? That's the criteria for
It's
visa.
called an alien with extraordinary abilities,
That's
which
right.
means that no one else in the world can do what you do. Hence, me sitting right here.
Excellent. Let's do that. Wonderful. But I do think that if you start referring to Hollywood as either Mumbai or Hombe,
What would Hollywood be like if it's in Los Angeles?
it'll
so,
catch on, it'll trend. It's Hombe. Think about it this way. You leave the H from Hollywood.
So you're saying we should call ourselves Hombe?
No, call them Hombe. You leave the H in Hollywood and attach Mumbai or Bombay to the rest of it. That's
Or like
exactly the...
Los Angeles,
yeah, that works too.
right? Like
Hashtag boss. and-
it's
We-
not.
we
Let's
need
just
to
leave
play with
Hollywood
that, we need
aside
to play with that.
and the Hindi film industry separate.
So
That's great.
slightly more serious, I guess,
Alright.
your social causes,
Yes.
of which there are many. There's education that you've spoken of. There's refugees and displaced people. Would you like to share with us your experience of the refugee camp in Jordan that you've been to?
Well, I've been associated with UNICEF now for over a decade, and to me, the privilege of being able to work with an organization like UNICEF is I get to do a lot of field work and travel around the world and, meet such inspiring people who live in such dire circumstances but still have the ability to find hope in the world. Like sometimes I think if everything of mine was stolen from me, displaced from war, and I was made to live under a tent roof and have my children survive and not being able to send them to school and not be completely uncertain of my future, I'd be angry at the world.
Yeah.
I'd be angry at the world for not caring. And I understand that. I mean, so many kids around the world, especially with all the war-ravaged, conflict-ravaged areas in Syria and around the world, those kids, all they wanted was books. All they wanted were teachers. All they wanted was to be able to have some sort of grip on their future so that they didn't have a generation of children that were not educated and could not get jobs. And each one that I met at this refugee camp in Jordan spoke to me about wanting to go back and rebuild Syria. And not angry at Syria, not angry at anything that happened, but they said, we want to go back and rebuild our country. And that was just incredible for me. I remember it was horrible because I flew directly from Jordan and that Syrian refugee camp for the Emmys last year. And my dress was this custom-made Balmain gown, and I was wearing about 50 carats of diamonds that day. And when I landed in for the Emmys, I remember I was sitting for hair and makeup, and my makeup artist was doing my makeup, and I suddenly had tears down my eyes, and she said, what happened? I said, this just in my head, I can't. I mean, from where I have come and what I've seen and how little people have to survive on, and then there's this business that I have to do what I do. But I was explained that we're a means to an end as public people. And if I didn't do this, I guess I wouldn't have the opportunity to bring light to that.
That's right.
But as a human being, it shook me to my core.
You bring spotlight to these things. Closer to home, I don't know if you've been following the Rohingya crisis.
Yes, I have.
People displaced in Myanmar, across
Yes,
the
I have.
border.
It's unbelievable.
Any
the
thoughts on
genocide
that? Any?
I mean, just around the world, and this is, I'm hoping I can do a field visit soon. I hope that can happen through UNICEF. We've been working on it, but I just think around the world, just have we become as a society desensitized to this? Do we wake up every morning and we read about hundreds of, we see kids washing up on the shore, we see children desensitized. We hear about shootings in America, we hear about bombings in Syria, we hear about genocide in Rohingya. It's like, so as a world, I feel like my thoughts are that. My thoughts are, can we not ignore the parts of the world where this is happening? Can we be affected as human beings? Can we sit down and feel in our hearts and in our guts that this is wrong, and as a global society make noise enough to be able to change things?
Do you see this as a failure of leadership?
I mean, I don't see this as a failure of leadership.
Including Nobel Prize winning leadership.
No, I do think that leadership needs to definitely change its gaze, and definitely leadership, governments around the world need to be able to, understand that this is a humanitarian crisis around the world. This is not a regional crisis. This is human beings. And yes, as a world, we need to pay more attention to it. I definitely think so.